Tonight, we have the 2025 APFL schedule release for you, and we're going to get started in about 20 seconds. Hey, fellow fanatics, welcome to the Fanatically Real broadcast, sponsored by Sport Management Solutions, your one-stop shop for all your athletic communication needs. I said we got two people out there with us tonight. If you're out there, leave us a comment so we can say hello to you. Sean says he's wearing the same hat right now. That's pretty awesome. I haven't had this hat on probably in like 6 years, and I just decided to throw this shirt on today, and I was like, you know what might match this shirt pretty well? This hat that I haven't worn for 6 years. Anthony out there with us as well. Ferg, what's going on with you, brother? How are you? How are things in Ohio? Are you up there and settled now? Is everything good with you and the family and the job? Let me know. Hanley out there with us as well. Hanley, how are you? You don't have to worry about me being scared of you. I don't think we play again for a couple of years. We'll have to go back on the schedule and look to see when it is that I end up playing the NFC East. Maybe that was in year one, so maybe we do play in 2026. But since we're talking about 2026 and future schedules, why don't we focus on the 2025 schedule, because that's what we're all here for tonight. Hopefully you all can hear me okay. Katie out there with us as well. Katie, how are you? I'm glad you're here for this. You get a chance to see what this looks like as we get ready to do the WRL, and then how this is kind of produced in all of the years that when we do this. And if you decide that you can play Dynasty with us one year as well, you'll know what this is all about. So let's first talk about the blueprint and how we come up with the way the weeks are created in our 13-week APFL regular season schedule. So me and the director, Toby Keller, look at, let's see what he's up to over here. Yep, we're up here recruiting about an hour south of Toledo, back around our family, so the kids love it. Awesome. So, like, how far south? The reason I ask is because, remember, I went to school in Bowling Green, which is really only, about 20, 30 minutes south. So how far away are you from Toledo? So when me and the director sit down and we look at this holistically of what the season is going to look like for 13 games of the regular season, we have a couple of things that we use as a blueprint for this schedule. First thing that we look at is the bye weeks of the NFL schedule. So we had to wait until the NFL schedule was released. That was released on the, I believe it was the 14th. We are now 2 weeks away from that release. We were going to do this show last week. However, I appreciate you all humoring me and allowing me to have the week off, as I'm literally still dealing with the back issues that I had last Monday. And here we are like 10 days later, still dealing with them. So what we end up doing is we look holistically at the NFL schedule in weeks 1 through 13, and we see what the bye weeks look like. And what that determines for us are a couple of things. We have three types of weeks that we schedule. We schedule in-division games. I don't know what you're talking about. 13 weeks is the same thing as 13 games. So we look at to break down the criteria into three different types of games, whether that's going to be an in-division game, whether that's going to be a strength of schedule game, or whether that's going to be a cross-conference game. And we allow usually the bye weeks of the NFL to dictate what that's going to look like. So when the schedule was first released 2 weeks ago, Toby and I sat down separately and we looked over the thing and we wrote down what type of game could be played during that week. Should it be an in-division game? Should it be a strength of schedule game? Or should it be a cross-conference game? Now, there were a couple of things that will automatically dictate what that week is going to be. One of them is in week one, if there is ever a way for us to have a APFL bowl matchup from the year before, that will be the type of game that we will play in week one. And this coming up on our fourth year, we have not been able to do that yet. So what we end up allowing or having dictate what our first week of the schedule is going to be is whatever type of game the NFL opens with on Thursday Night Football of opening night. This year it happens to be an in-division game as Dallas plays Philadelphia, but we'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit later on. The other thing that we always use to dictate one of the weeks of the schedule is whichever week has the most bye weeks. We will always make that a cross-conference game in this year's schedule. That happens to be week 8. Get into that a little bit more as we go through each one of the weeks. And then the last week of the season is always an in-division game. And the way we always schedule that is it's going to be number 1 versus number 2 and number 3 versus number 4 of the final standings of the year before in that particular division. So with this blueprint, we went ahead and mapped out what we thought should be weeks 1 through 13, and we matched perfectly. So there are certain times where it can be a division game or a strength of schedule game just based on number of bye weeks, what type of games that we still have left that we need to fill, using that, in this case, week 1, week 8, and week 13 blueprint, and we matched exactly. And then I started building the schedule, and it started to tweak things around a little bit. Ultimately, we still ended up with 11 out of the 13 weeks still the same from the original blueprint for the season, and I'll kind of get into that as we go through each one of the weeks and why it differed a little bit. So one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that we had at least the doubleheader is for the WRL. It is not for the APFL. That is going to be a couple of weeks from now. Thank you for the input. So something I thought we were going to do original this year was we were going to have one of each one of those 3 types of games, whether that's going to be an in-division game, a strength of schedule game, or a cross-conference game in the first couple of weeks before we got into the bye weeks. That was one of the kind of changes that I wanted to tweak between what me and the director came up with. And I thought it was an original idea until I pulled up the Excel document that I used to kind of lay out the schedule last year and I use it as an example for this year, and come to find out we did in fact do that last year as well. We put a cross-conference game in early in the season when there were no bye weeks to make sure that we fulfilled hey, we want to have one of each one of the type of games. And again, I thought it was an original idea this year. It was not an original idea because we did it last year as well. So the 2 weeks that we ended up differing on end up being week 4 and week 10. There was a little rotation there. Again, as we get through each one of these weeks, it will get explained. And this is why you shouldn't play so many leagues, because it's easily to get confused. That's for sure. All right, so let's get into this. We're going to do a week-by-week breakdown of these, and then I'm going to show you the actual schedule up on the screen. You can come back and watch this later on. Pause it so you can look at it. Now that we're finally doing the schedule release tonight, give me the next couple of days to be able to put this schedule on MFL for us. And then hopefully, I don't know if I've got the schedules built in on the new website yet, but if not, this will be the catalyst to start getting the schedules built on the new website. We will do a week by week or a full schedule, and then on your individual team pages, you will be able to see your team schedule. So this will be a great catalyst for that. So let's get into week 1. Let me get my face off the screen here. Let me pull up the first week here for you all. And here we go. Since we were unable to play the APFL Bowl rematch because the AFC West and the NFC North do not play each other this year, we let the NFL's opening night, Thursday Night Football, dictate what type of game that we were going to have. So in week 1, we are going to play an in-division game. And not only are we letting that Thursday night game dictate this, there are 9 NFL divisional games in week 1. So here it is on the AFC to start off with, and Anthony Monhay with us, since Hanley brought up the WRL just a little bit ago. Last year's champ, 2 years ago champ, Anthony Monhay. How are you, brother? How are things out west? So here are your AFC matchups for week 1, since we are playing a divisional matchup. Probably the more fun side of this bracket or this schedule for week 1 is the NFC side, because there has been a lot of shit talking going on in the NFC North. As we look at that game, the Green Bay Cheeseheads are playing the Minnesota Skull. Those two seem to have a love-hate relationship on Discord right now. We got the Monsters playing last year's NFC champion as they are playing the Pride. And then matching the NFC schedule, we have the Desperados, which is the Dallas Cowboys, playing the Philadelphia Griffins, which is the Philadelphia Eagles. Both of those general managers on with us right now, Anthony, who I just brought up on the screen, and Hanley, who was just most recently up on the screen as well. So there is our week 1 schedule. So in week 2, there are actually 7 NFL strength of schedule games, but that doesn't really do a whole lot for us here in the APFL anymore, as our strength of schedule is kind of our own strength of schedule as we play people that are equal to us in our divisional standings. But nonetheless, we decided to make week 2 a strength of schedule game. And as you can see, as I'm scrolling through these, look up at the top right underneath where it says 2025 APFL schedule. You'll see the week and what type of game we are having on that week. And then in a couple of slides, when you start seeing the buys show up, I've also put the buy teams that are on there as well. That way, if you do go back and use this as a reference, you'll be able to see that. So there is the AFC side for week 2. Here is the NFC side for week 2 strength of schedule game again. And then week 3, we are back in the division. The matchups up for these games, as well as week 1, were determined for us all the way in weeks 10, 11, and 13. And you're probably thinking, well, Kamish, how does that work? Well, let me get the week 3 games up for you first. So in week 13, like I said at the top of the show, we always play a in-division game, and that game is always 1 versus 2 and 3 versus 4 from the previous final standings. Then we were looking at our matchups and our NFL schedule, and because we have Ferg here with us tonight, this actually applies to him. We found out that we can match the NFC's West matchups in weeks 10 and 11 perfectly to our schedule. And since those matchups were different from what we were already basing off of our blueprint for week 13, which is 1 versus 2, we already knew the order that we wanted to schedule our in-division games earlier in the season. But again, how so? So when we do the in-division matchups, I like to use a pattern. So whoever you play in your first divisional matchup is the same team you play in your fourth divisional matchup. Whoever you play in your second divisional matchup is who you play in number 5. And whoever you play in your third divisional matchup is who you play in week 6. So weeks 1, and I think if it's in this case, I think it's, I can't remember what week it is. I think it's 10. Match each other. Then week 3 and 11 match each other, and then week 7 and week 13 match each other. And I have the notes here as we go a little bit further along, so you'll be able to see it. So just so happened that it worked out for the NFC West for us and with the NFL, and that really determined this year's in-division schedule. So there is the AFC week 3 back in the division. Here is that was the AFC, I'm sorry. This is the NFC's week 3 in-division schedule. All right, let's move on to week 4. Week 4 is our first cross-conference games, and this is also before we get our first rounds of bye weeks for the NFL. It's purple. It's purple because red and blue make purple. So since we have the AFC being in red and the NFC being in blue, we decided to make any cross-conference games in purple. And this is where you're going to get to see the AFC East playing the NFC South. You get, let's see who else is here. We got the AFC North playing the NFC North. And then in the next set of games, we have the AFC South playing the NFC West. And then finally, the AFC West playing the NFC East. And those will be the cross-conference games for the entire year. Again, that's on a 4-year rotational basis. This is our 4th year. This is finally when we can say every team has now played every team in the APFL. And because we get our first set of buys in the NFL, again, you're going to see that up in the corner where it says week. It'll show 5 here in just a second. It'll show that it's another conference game and the buys that we are having. Because we're getting our first set of buys, we've decided to make week 5 our next cross-conference game. And there you are with week 5 for the first half of them. Again, if you want to go back and look at this as a reference, you can always pause it. Here's your second half of the week 5 cross-conference games. And then when it comes to week 6 and week 7, these games could have gone either way. They could have been a strength of schedule or a divisional game. Both of these weeks have 2 buys in them. Basically flipped a coin, and week 6 became the strength of schedule game. So here is your strength of schedule game. For the AFC side, you can see who's off there on the on the NFL schedule. We have Houston and Minnesota off in week 6. Here is your strength of schedule for the NFC side. Again, Houston and Minnesota off, still the same week. And then week 7 is our last set of in-division games. This is your game 3 of your in-division before we start that recycle, like I said, that we're going to get into, where the 1 matches game 4, game 2 matches game 5, and then game 3 matches game 6 of your in-division schedule. So here is your last in-division game before we start repeating. This will be the same schedule that will end up matching week 13, which is your 1 versus 2 and your 3 versus 4. So like we said at the top of the show, week 8, which is the most buys in the NFL, always dictates a cross-conference game for us. So here we are. There. I'm sorry. Let me go back. I didn't want to make sure NFC gets their due diligence. Here is their NFC side of the week 7 divisional matchup. And here is our cross-conference game with the most buys, 6 NFL teams off in this week. We always make this a cross-conference game. There is the first half of the cross-conference games. Here is your second half of the cross-conference games. And then in week 9, we kind of became, hey, we have the rest of the weeks filled, and we have 1 strength of schedule game left. So we kind of filled in week 9 with a strength of schedule game. We do have 4 teams off in the NFL in week 9. Here is your AFC side of the house. Here is your NFC side of the house for the strength of schedule game. And then for week 10 upcoming, we are back into our divisional games. And like I said, it should match week one's matchup. And this was determined because our schedule for the NFC West and the NFL's schedule for the NFC West matched up perfectly. So here's what that looks like on the AFC side, 4 buys in that game. Here is what it looks like on the NFC side, and you can see the bottom 2 games or the bottom 4 teams there, San Francisco and LA, and then Seattle and Arizona. That matches the NFL schedule. And it just so happened that the same thing happened in week 11. So here is your week 11, which has 2 buys in it, Indianapolis, New Orleans. Here's your AFC side for a divisional game. This should match the second divisional game that we had at the top, which I believe was week 3. And then here is your NFC side. Again, those bottom 2 games, bottom 4 teams matching the NFL schedule exactly, with San Francisco playing Arizona and Seattle playing LA. And then we have 1 more cross-conference game that we have to get in, and it has 4 buys to it. Here is the first half of those games. Here is the second half of those games. And then in week 13, like we said at the top of the show, we have made it a thing where you will always play an in-division foe the last week of the season. And what we will use is it will be number 1 versus number 2 and number 3 versus number 4 from the last year's standings. So this will match week 7 schedule that you saw up above. Here is the AFC side, and here is the NFC side. So that is it for the schedule reveal. So what we will do over the next couple of days is we will get this schedule mirrored on MFL. So you can go to MFL and see it. I will start working these schedules on the new website. So we will have an entire schedule page that you can look at. It will be much prettier. It'll be more pretty than what you see on the MFL page, because as we all know, it's functional but not pretty. We will make our side pretty. And then what you all don't know, or some of you do, because we kind of did a little bit of a leak last week whenever I got them done, I do have all of your individual schedules done for each one of the teams as well. I think I'm going to put a channel together probably on or under the APFL header on Discord. Might already be one there from previous years. If nothing else, if that doesn't work, I will make sure that each one of you get your team schedule. I will DM it to you if I have to, if you want to use it as a reference. Something that we did on that. In fact, you know what? Since we're here, I'll pull one up and get it to show to everybody, since it should pop up on the window over here. Let me see if I can make it happen while we're still sitting here talking. That way you can see what it looks like. So I can show you something that I decided to add to it this year. And because it's me, I'll just pull it up on my screen. I'll pull mine up on my screen. Let me shift it over there on monitor number 3. And then I'll pull it up and show you what it's going to look like for each person. Now let me pull this back up on the screen. Here we go. All right. So this is my team's schedule. As you can see, each one of the weeks are there, 1 through 13. Something we added to the schedule this year, just in case you wanted to use it as another reference. On the weeks that we do have buys, they are there underneath those weeks. So weeks 5 through 12, when there are buys in the NFL, they will also be on your team schedule, just as a reference if you want to use them. Like I said, I will put that over on Discord if we have a channel already created for it. If not, maybe I'll just create the channel. I'll DM to you, whatever. In the next couple of days, you guys will have your individual team schedules. We will also put it over on MFL, and then I will do whatever I can on the new website to get a full league schedule and individual team schedules on your team pages on the new website. Anything that you could do, I 100% agree. Anthony said the same thing. He agrees with that. We were doing really great work with the website. Something I found out the other day, I was finally able to figure out how to do API calls from MFL, manipulate it on our website, and then re-upload it to MFL. And we were doing this with the starting lineups, which is probably the most important thing that we can do other than adding and dropping of players, is getting a starting lineup straight. I don't know what happened. I have to look into the code a little bit more, but I've been focused on the schedule stuff and then historical data for the website, that whenever I try to go in, and my page should be the only one that's able to do this right now, but whenever I try to go in and submit my lineup for it, for whatever reason, it thinks that my APFL team is my APBL team now. And it says that there are no Cincinnati Reds teams in the APFL. Well, no shit. Excuse the language. So I don't know what happened there. So I have to look into the code of that to figure out why it's doing that. But as we get the schedule built and it's posted over there, that will be the next thing that I can work on, is making sure we can find out why the submission of the lineups all of a sudden broke for whatever reason. So we'll continue working with the website probably all year, to be honest with you. The 2025 is going to be the year that we do all of our testing. And then 2026, hopefully we'll be able to fully implement it. Every week will probably be some kind of new feature that I will have you all go out and test and say, hey, you can do this now on our website. Register, log in, do it, make sure it works, go back over to MFL to verify. That way you all can be my test subjects. And then if for some reason something doesn't work from our website, you always have the ability to go over to MFL, fix it, and then we can figure out what's wrong with it from our website and make sure in 2026 you don't have to touch MFL anymore if you don't want to. It will never, like, Gerard was over here the other day and he said the same thing to me. He said, you literally could work on this website every single day, couldn't you? And there's always going to be something that we can either create or improve on this website from now until eternity. And now that we've started getting some of the historical data put in for the WRL League, we have now gotten seasons 1995 through 2009, to and through 2009, put in the historical data. And I have now put all of the APBL data in there for the last 2 seasons as well. Probably the next thing that I'm going to hit is the APFL, since we've done that for 4 seasons. And then I will probably 3 seasons. This will be season 4. And then I'll probably backtrack and go back to the WRL and start adding it in there. And then we also have to remember all those small leagues that we've had out there before. We had the defunct dynasty leagues where we ran those for 2 years, Alpha through Delta. We've had the Arm and Leg League. I don't know if that's going to get inputted in there or not. King of the Castle, probably a weird one, probably doesn't need to be on there. But there are always leagues that we've done that are no longer existing that we need to put in there. I hope not. I hope you all feel that way. Like, if I ever stop fiddling with this stuff, then we've reached a bad point with FSA, especially now with the abilities that we have of the things that we can do. I hope I never stop fiddling. So that's it. I wanted to make sure the APFL schedule got out there for everybody. And now that it has been revealed, I can do all of the background stuff. Again, MFL, individual schedules, trying to get everything on the new website put together for you all. Every time I do this, I will give you an update and let you know where we're at, what we have done, and what's new. I don't know. We would really have to go back and look. I can tell you that there was no Yahoo, ESPN, or any of them when we started this in 1993, because I had to use newspapers to get the stats. There might have been other people that were doing it, but I know I kind of fought the urge from 95 until I think 2001 to not use the WYSIWYG programs. And I think it was in 2002 was the first time that we actually, maybe it was 2004, that we actually used a website to run this league. And I would like to get to the point where we can just do API calls to the biggest and best websites that are out there and just have everybody run everything through FSA. That's it. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about tonight, make sure you hit me up on Discord. Like I said, over the next couple of days, I'll get everything put where it needs to be between all of the sites and Discord. Our next broadcast is going to be Friday night. We did not do the 7th inning stretch last week because I had tickets to the Green Jackets game, so went to the Green Jackets game instead. But we will be live at 7:15 on Friday night for the 7th inning stretch. And then next week, on 4 June, we will have another football broadcast, hopefully with a schedule reveal or schedule updates for the WRL. That way Hanley doesn't get confused. And if we can't do it next week on the 4th of June, it's not going to be until the 18th of June because I'm going on a vacation with the extended family, and we will be out of town for the show on the 11th. So if we don't get anything published on the 4th, it won't get done until we get back on the 18th. We'll be in the Appalachian Black Bears region during that time. So if anybody is around, in fact, I don't know if Bromy is watching this tonight, but I will have to hit him up. I might have the opportunity to meet the commissioner of the TCAA while I'm up there. That would be a very nice trip. But we will keep you informed and let you know. So I want to say thank you for watching tonight's broadcast. Thank you to all of our sponsors, Sport Management Solutions, your one-stop shop for all your athletic communication needs, the Recast, the official music of the FSA. And if you liked tonight's show, make sure you go out, like, subscribe, follow us on all of our social media outlets. And remember, we are Fanatically Real. Have a good night. Hit me on Discord. See you all next week.